Welcome, guys. Welcome back to my podcast. Yeah. And today we're going to be talking about Bold and the Beautiful. Today's topic, we're going to be talking about the timeline continuity. This is something I've really wanted to talk about. I've been trying to, but there's been so many topics to talk about, like best character, less gay representation, Brooke being the worst character. But I really want to talk about this. This one is a very important topic for me to talk about because it's something that has been kind of buggering me, the time slots and everything. So this might be quite a long podcast. Who knows? But yeah, anyway, yeah. Please subscribe, turn the notification, and click the bell beside you. Anyway, let's jump right on to it, shall we? So, I brought my water bottle. I might need to bring some food, who knows. But, yeah, strap yourself, get some popcorn if you want to. Okay. Bold and the Beautiful has been going on since 1987. To 2024. So this show has been going on for 37 years. So Brooke was about roughly 25 years old, I think. I think she might have been younger. She might have been 20. This is another thing that bugs me about this show. It doesn't remember people's ages. I think Eric's meant to be like 90 or something. But, yeah, let's just jump right in. Okay, this show expects us to know, I think it's better now. One thing I really do like about the show now, compared to, early older stuff in Bold and the Beautiful, is that it knows how old people are now. So Steffi would be roughly about 30 years old. Hope would be about early 30s, possibly. Steffi would be about maybe 35 or something. She'd be about Finn's age. 30. Finn would be, I think Finn might be older. I don't know. Finn 36, 37. Very attractive. Also, yeah, Steffi's very attractive too. Probably not as attractive as Hope, but yeah, both very attractive. But yeah, and Liam would be about 31, 32. I think Liam might be younger than Steffi. Although he might be older. No, he's older than Steffi. I don't know. No, he'd be older than Steffi. Surely. 30, maybe 36. I don't know. Okay, so put it out there. Kelly would be about 7 or 8. So that means that Hayes would be about 3. I think he's meant to be 5 now, but it makes no sense how old he is. So that means that Beth would be about 5. Okay, so we've wrapped that up. How old is Brooke? Is Brooke 60 or 70? Or she'd be in her 60s, right? Right, but then how old would Eric be? 80? I'm very confused with this show. Okay, so Brooke was about 20, right? But she would have had to have a child when she was 20 somewhere. 25, 26. When she had Bridget. When she had Rick and Bridget. Roughly. And so and then Bridget was about 18 when her mum got pregnant again. So she would have had to be about 40. Keep in mind, she also got pregnant with her sister's husband. At the time when Hope was still an adult or still a teenager when she got pregnant with Katie's child. So that means that Brooke would have had to have been 50 or 60 when she had a child. This is something that really bugs me about this show. It doesn't make sense. Or maybe she was 50. Or was she in her early 30s when she had Hope? So that means she would have been about 55 45 or something. No, but that wouldn't make sense because then she would have had to be in about 1920 when Bridget was born. But then, how old would be Stephanie? Because, okay, Stephanie would have been in about late 40s, early 50s when she was on the show. 40. They said she got married at 18. They got married, Eric and Stephanie got married at 18, and they were married for 45 years. 35 years. 35 years, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, 35 years. So that means that they had Ridge. So Ridge would have had to be before she was married. Before Ridge was born, before they were married. Right? Before they were together. When she was with Mossimo. So she would have been 16, 17. So, okay, so Stephanie is about 45 on the show. And Ridge is about... Oh, wait, hold on. How old's Ridge? 20. Isn't he like 2 years older than Brooke? So she would be about 22. This is just me estimating. He's 24. So that would mean that Stephanie was 42 or 40 because she was 16, 17 when she got pregnant. 17, 41. So she would have died. He had Steffi in his 30s. Steffi would have been about 20 when she died. So Ridge was 50. So she was about 70 when Stephanie died. Or was she 60? I don't know. She was 70. So that means that Eric would be about 80. I think. But then, what's the time slot between, okay, so Taylor's children, so Bridget would have to be about... Bridget would have to be about 20 when Brooke had when she had her last child. Well, technically, she has another child named Jack, but that's a different story. But she would have had to be about... So when she had RJ, Bridget and Rick would have to be over 20. They would have to be about 22 or something, 23. So that means that when RJ was born... So she was 20-something when she had... So she would have had to have RJ when she was 40-something. 45 or something. But then she was going through menopause when Brooke was about 60. That makes no sense. So this is another thing that bugs me about this show. It's like the same thing, because I was just thinking in my head, if Ridge was about 22, 23, 24, that would have mean and he was sleeping with Morgan when she was 17. Yes, I know, he's a pedophile. That's what I'm saying, yes. And that's what they're claiming, even though they're saying, no, he's not he just slept with a 17-year-old, so that doesn't count as a pedophile. But we know 17 is an underage for having sex and getting pregnant. But, so that would mean that if he was 23, then Morgan would have had to been pregnant when the show started. Right? Or was it before the show started? Because he would have been 30. This is the thing. This show makes no sense. The time slots. Bridget... people in the show get married at 18 years old as soon as they go into college. And this happens multiple times on this show. You know, I get very confused. Who's getting married, who's not. The show does know, people don't do that anymore. People don't get married till they're 30 now these days. People are sometimes having children before they're getting married. A lot of the time. 60... Apparently about 62% statistics say that most people are usually having children before they get married. It's very rare. It's not very rare, but it's more common. So, yeah, the show... Yeah, I think it's about 48 or something. No, 38%. 38%. But, yeah, that just demonstrates once again, okay, so in the time slots, Hope is about, in 2007, she's running around with RJ, but this show, like makes their characters age rapidly. I'm very surprised none of the characters have aged rapidly very much. I thought they would age more. I thought that Beth would be like, you know, I don't know, kid. I think Beth was still. I thought that Steffi's first child would be about a teenager by now. The way they handle this show, it's like, oh yeah, 10 years later they're like, you know, this age, and then they age slowly. It's only because they don't know what to do with their characters. It's the only reason they age them quicker, because they want to do more with the characters. But it's just the same bullshit all the time. So Rick was a teenager. I think Rick was an adult. I think he got Amber pregnant in like 1998, so he would have been like 18, 19. So that means that Rick would be now, he would be about 40, 50, right? This is just me estimating 40. But then Brooke, they say that Brooke was 25 when she first started the show, and that she's about 62. But if she was 62, right, and Brooke was 25, that means that she would have had to have had a daughter. Her daughter apparently was 18, so that if her daughter was 18 when she got married, or was she 17? I can't remember when Bridget got married. But she got married, so that means that... This show hurts my brain. Like, does that mean that Brooke is, like... How old's Brooke? So that means Brooke would have been 40. This show hurts my brain so much. Brooke was 40. You know another thing that's really hurts my brain? So Sally got pregnant, right? And it's very weird, her age, because Macy's meant to be like the same age as Brooke. So she died about when she was like 40, Macy, because then she would have been like 4. So that means that Sally had a child. So Macy's like about 30 years older than RJ, almost, just about like 20-something, over 20-something years. So maybe Sally had a child at 18, and then she had a child like 45 or some shit. That makes no sense. Does that mean if CJ... Does that mean she's 60 something in the 2000s? She's in the 60s? See what I mean? Like, does that mean she's in the 60s? Because then Macy died at 30. No, but then she would have had teenage... Yeah. See, this makes no sense. And the way they describe the timelines, like, you know, Bridget apparently was born in what year? Let's go. Rick was born in 1990, around about October 1990, right? I'm pretty sure that's when he was, or November or something, 1990, he was born. So that means that, you know, does that mean like, you know, and then in 1998, he's an adult. Like, 8 years of being on this show and he's already an adult. He's like, he aged 10 years older. And they did the same thing with Hope. In 2000, she was born in 2002, and then in 2010, she's 18 years old, 17 years old. See what I mean? Like, you know, she aged 10 years older than she's supposed to. She's meant to be 8 years old, and she's 18. And if she's 18, then in 2010, then she must be about 32, right? Isn't she 32 now? That's what I was right, 32. Steffi would be about 35. Finn maybe 36, 37. But then Finn must be younger than Steffi, because Sheila would have had to have a child before she left the show, right? After she left the show, because she was on the show and she wasn't pregnant with Finn. So she would have had to be pregnant with him after the show. Maybe they're the same age. Maybe she got pregnant in 1999. or something when Taylor got pregnant. But then wouldn't Liam be the same? How old's Liam? See, with the show, it just makes no sense. Like, I'm trying to think it in my head. Like, another thing, too, that makes no sense, too. I mean, it makes sense, but how old's Darla? If Darla is about 20 on the show, let's just say she's about 20 years old. And then around the time, you know, Rick and Bridget are around, she's about 40 years old. So she would have had to have, you know, her first child at 45. Or 35. No, but then Macy would be about 40. Since CJ was born. Okay, Macy is about 20. Let's just say she's 20 years old. And CJ is about Rick's age, roughly. I think CJ might be, like, younger than Rick, because I think Rick was born before CJ. But they don't remember that. See, this is the problem. So then Macy would be about 40 when she died. Which means that Darla would be in about 45, right, when she got pregnant with Thorne's child and had Allie. Right? So Thorne would be about 60. Right? 60? Brooke is somewhere in her 60s. I thought she might have been 70, but that wouldn't make sense. The show doesn't make any sense. The show is like, it makes no sense. Like, make it make sense. You know, when Hope turns 18 in 2010, Bridget should have been the one to turn 18 in 2010 because she was born in 1992. She would have been 18 then. Also, the time slots when the daughters are, when Steffi and Phoebe are like teenagers when their mum came. So their mum died when they were kids. So Taylor would have been dead for 10 years. But realistically, she was dead for about a year, 2.5 years, right? On the show. She died in 2002 and came back from the dead in 2005. When Sheila shot her, so it was a 10-year gap, even though it was 2.5 years, because Steffi was about, I think Steffi and Phoebe were about 5 when Taylor died, or something, or 6, and they're like about 16 or something, or 15, 16, I think they're, because Thomas is about 18 when he's sleeping with Amber, right? When does he get together with that other girl? She doesn't really last very long, but, you know. That made no sense. I just realised that Thomas is also a pedophile. Because didn't he sleep with the 16-year-old? Wasn't she 16, that other girl? I can't remember. What was her name? I'm going to search what her name was. Gabriella? Gabriella. Okay. Her name was Gabriella. And she was 17. And he was 20. Like, this show is so stupid. Like, the time gaps. Like Phoebe dying. Wasn't she like 21 when she died? Or something? When Rick, like, when she, like, drove herself to a death. I love how that Rick, they always say, like, Rick is the one that killed her. Like, Rick, you're the one that killed my daughter. She wasn't wearing a seatbelt, you dumb show. Remember the fucking show. You stupid. I haven't sworn then. That was good. But yeah, try not to swear as much. But this show just makes me very angry. And the time gaps in between. Like, okay, so then after Rick, so Brooke's son kind of hangs around when Hope's around. But he looks like 20 or 30. He looks about 30, not 20. He looks about 30. But he's like about 40 something when Hope's like born. Like Hope's a teenager, but he was a teenager himself when she was born, or an adult. So that means he would have been 40, right? So Brooke would have had to been about 60. See, again, it makes no sense because it's been 10 years, so that means Brooke would be 70, right? And Eric would be about 90. Like, what? How it's Katie and Donna? When did Donna have her son? Obviously, Donna's not in the show as much in the earlier one, so she would have had to have her son somewhere. But, like, the Sheila one, they don't explain that. Like, she was on the show for, 1992 to 1998, and she didn't have Finn, so she must have had Finn in 1999, or she had him before that. So that means that Finn would have to be about bloody 50. So I doubt he was born before the show. She stole the baby. So it would have been after. So Steffi and Finn are the same age. Or he's younger than Steffi. Why don't we see Sheila's like family in that? We haven't seen them in so long. Like, what happened to I know this is not a conversation, but what happened to like what was her name? Erica or whatever her name was. What happened to her? She disappeared. What happened to her other daughter? What was her name? Mary? What happened to her? Erica, same person. She had a few children. I think she had a child with Mosimo, but it was more in Young and the Restless. I don't know. This show makes no sense. Also, when Amber's around, Amber was babysitting them when she was about 18. So she's also a pedophile too. But a female pedophile. So she was sleeping with a 16-year-old. So, and she got pregnant with his child, so so she would have had to be around Hope. So Hope and Steffi were about 20 when she came back onto the show, or Steffi was. So that means that Amber would be about 40. And she was sleeping with Oliver. And he was 18. Like, what? And she got pregnant at 40? The show. Brooke got pregnant at 60. Or 50. 60. It'd have to have been 60. So, Brooke is about 70. Show makes no sense. Do you see what I'm talking about? Like, the gaps in between? Like, it makes sense. Like, Brooke was 20. Like, back in the 80s. 90s, she would have been 30. 2000s, 40. 2010, 50, and 2020, she's in her 60s. That makes sense, right? But when you compare, like, when she had a daughter in 1990, which she also would have been early 20s, heading towards the 30s, she would have been, and then she had her other daughter in 2002, so that would have been, like, and her daughter, she slept with the daughter's husband, so her daughter would have been, like, 18, and it makes no sense. So that means she would have been 40 when she had her other daughter. But then she was pregnant with her sister's husband, and the daughter that was born 2002 was an adult. So that means that she had a child at 60. Which makes no sense, because she'd be 70, and, like, what? See what I mean? Like, this show makes no sense. Also, she was pregnant in 1989. That was her first pregnancy, and then she lost a child. But then she also lost a child in 2013, so she got pregnant 24 years later. Even though it was probably more like, 30, 40 years later. Because Hope wasn't around. She was 20 years... she was 20 when she got pregnant with Katie's child, but then Bridget was about 20 when Hope was born, so that just would, or around about then, 18 and all that, so that just means that Hope would be about 20, Bridget be 40, and she got pregnant with her sister's husband, with Katie's husband at 60. So she'd be about 70 now, and that was in 2013. She'd be 70 now. But she's not 70. It makes no sense. Make this show make sense. Like, okay, if Bridget... Okay, let's say that Bridget had a child, right? Also, Bridget had a child around when Hope was about a teenager. So that means that Bridget had her first child at 40, right? 30, 40, with Olive. Owen. That was her first child, right? Owen, Jackie's husband, right? So that was her first child. So what happened to that child? Did it just like disappear or something? Did they forget that Bridget had a child? Because Bridget kind of is back on the show, even though she's not back. She's kind of like a reoccurring character. She's not one of the main characters. But, so that means she has a child. I just cut myself. Accidentally, obviously. I need to cut my toenails. Because they're very long. Cut them later, but shit. But yeah, yeah, it makes no sense. How old is like... How old is the time slots between... Because Sally's come back from the show when they brought back the second Sally. She didn't last very long. I think she lasted about 6 months, maybe. She didn't last very long. I didn't think she would. Like, you can't beat OG Sally. But, like, wouldn't she be dead, though? Because she'd be about 80, 90. And the time slots. So Macy would be around about Brooke's age. She'd be 60. Right? CJ would be about 40. Hope's about 30. No, Hope's 30 now. So Bridget would be about 50. Hope... Sally would be somewhere in her 90s. Because Bridget's 70. Brooke's 7. How old's Ridge? Ridge, because again, they said like Ridge was 23 years old when he got Morgan pregnant at 17, right? So that means like... This show is so stupid. I'm going back, I'm looping around what I'm saying. I've just noticed I'm doing that. Because the show's so stupid. It makes no sense. Like, if you made the show make sense, like, okay, Bridget, her daughter slept with her husband in 2010, means Brooke would have been about 40, and then she had a child. It would have made sense. Because Bridget would have been 18, literally. But because the show doesn't make any sense, the show is so stupid. Like, why is it stupid? Why is this show like the time slots, the timeline continuity? The continuity of this show drives me up the wall. Like, it makes no sense. The age gaps, like this time, like, okay, yeah, Sugar was around, so Sugar hasn't been on the show for 30 years, even though it's been about 20 years. Like, How old is, like... How old's Pam? Pamela, Stephanie's... How old's Stephanie's mum? That's another thing I want to talk about. How old's Stephanie's mum? Because her mum was alive. Okay, Stephanie... Okay, I want to talk about this. Stephanie's mum, right? So her dad died before the show. So Stephanie was about 40 when she was on the show. Okay, let's just say she was 40 on the show. So she was about 60. Well, 60, 70s, I don't know. So her mum would have had to been about 90 when she died. I'm trying to make this show make sense, but it's like one thing that just doesn't make any sense. You see what I mean? Like, I'm trying to loop around the story. Because Brooke's first grandchild would be about almost like 14, 15, right? It'd be about 15, right? What was the child's name? Was it named Nick? I have to go back. I think it was a girl. The first child was a girl. Or was it a boy? It was Dominic. No, it was Dominic, wasn't it? That's Brooke's first child's name, Dominic. They always seem to name their children after like them or their other children, like Hayes. Like, who names their child Hayes? Like, who names their child Hayes? This show hurts my brain. Like, it really hurts my brain. The time slots make no sense. I told you this would be a long podcast, but the time slots make no sense. Like, Eric's meant to be about 90 on this show. Or 80. But they make him sound like he's 70. If he was 70, then Ridge is 50, and that means that Steffi would be a 20. But Steffi was a 20, like about 15 years ago. So make the show make sense. So she would be about 35. And then Ridge would be about 65, 70. Ridge would be about 70. So Eric would be about 90. Like, and how's Pam meant to be? Pam looks way younger than Stephanie. I mean, they could be sisters, but, like, they don't look much in age. Show hurts my brain. It really does. What? You got Eric who's sleeping with, like, 50, 60-year-olds, and he's meant to be, like, 80, 90. And, yeah, just, this show makes no sense. Like, make the show make sense. Come on now. Like, seriously. Also, Katie was about 20, about like 15 or 16 or something when she was in the show. So she'd be about around Brooke's age. So she'd be about... She'd be about 60. Right? So that means that she had a child at what? 50. One of these days, I'd like this show to make sense. Caroline died 50 years ago, so 40 years ago, the original Caroline. So, anyway, yeah, I told you it'd be a long podcast. I'm trying to see if I've got everybody, though. But RJ, okay, another thing that makes no sense. RJ was meant to be a teenager when Hope was about 25, even though RJ was born 2 years before Hope. RJ is meant to be 2 years younger than Hope. And they're acting like RJ's about 20. And another thing too, I found out not CJ. What's his name? I keep forgetting the black characters. That's so sad. That is so sad that I keep forgetting the black characters. Zende. My gosh, that is so sad. Because these black characters should mean more to this show, but it doesn't. They just waste them away. I guess they got Carter, but not much. It's so sad. But CJ, I've done it again, forgot his name. Zende was apparently 10 when Hope was born. It was the same year because I watched an episode in 2002 and he's riding to, I think, Erica or something. I don't know why. But, so he was 10 years old. So, and see, RJ wasn't born. So RJ would be about 30 and Zende would be about 40. Again, this show makes no sense. One of these days, I would like to know what the timeline. They wouldn't give me a timeline. I bet you if I asked William Bell, like if I was the creator of the part of the studio, and I asked William Bell, hey, send me a timeline of everybody's ages, he won't do that because he knows it's fucked up. It makes no sense. It's seriously just. It makes no sense. This show is so dumb with its timelines and its continuity. Seriously. Like, seriously, who comes up with it? Anyway, I think I've said everything. Deacon. How old's Deacon, too? Deacon was about 25, 30. Right? 25, 30 when he was sleeping. I think he was about 25. I'll say he's 25 and he was sleeping with a 17, 18-year-old Bridget. So he'd be about 50. Bridget's about 40. He'd be about 50. Just one of these days. Anyway, I'm going to end this podcast before this brain show starts hurting my head. Anyway, please subscribe, turn on this notification, and click the bell beside you. I love you guys so much. Thanks for watching. Bye.